So here's a question that feels like it should have a simple answer but doesn't. We're constantly talking about the end of the fossil fuel era, but why do they still, run pretty much everything? Turns out the answer is a lot more complicated than you might think. I mean, let's be real, we've known for ages that this is a problem. We're building solar and wind faster than ever before. We hear all these promises about net zero, and yet, the vast majority of our global energy system is still powered by the very things we say we're trying to leave behind. It's a huge paradox.
And this chart, wow, this really just shows you the sheer scale of the challenge. Look at that, 82%. In 2023, that's how much of the energy we used came from fossil fuels. And that number, it's been stubbornly stuck right around there for decades. So what is really going on?
Now, this is a really fascinating way to frame it. The idea is that we're not just making a bad choice, like some bad habit we can't kick. The problem is way deeper. We are systematically, physically, and financially locked in. And before we go any further, it is absolutely crucial to remember this number. For 2.3 billion people, the whole energy conversation isn't about Teslas versus gas cars. It's about moving away from cooking with fuels that cause millions of deaths every single year. For them, fossil fuels can look like the quickest, most obvious path to a better life. Okay, so to really understand this lock-in effect, we've got to break it down. Let's start with the first part of the trap, the raw physics in the massive infrastructure we've built. We didn't build our world on oil and gas because we're huge fans of carbon dioxide. We did it because physically, they're kind of amazing at what they do. They pack a ton of energy into a small space, you can store them easily, and you can use that power whenever you want. Renewables are great, but they're spread out and, well, they're variable. You only get power when the sun is out or the wind is blowing. Physics basically gave fossil fuels the job in the first place. And so, based on that physics, we built the modern world. We're talking trillions and trillions of dollars spent on a global network of pipelines, power plants, and refineries. And here's the key. These things weren't built to be disposable. They were designed to last for half a century. This is just a perfect analogy for the problem of what economists call stranded assets. I mean, can you imagine asking a country to shut down a brand new, multi-billion-dollar power plant just a few years after it opened? It's a massive economic blow, and it creates this huge resistance to change. So that's the physical trap. But it's what we built on top of all that steel and concrete that creates the second part of the lock-in, a powerful, self-perpetuating machine of money and politics. Now, if you think fossil fuels are just competing on a level playing field, well, think again. In 2022 alone, governments around the world spent about $1.5 trillion, that's with a T, in direct subsidies to keep the price of these fuels artificially cheap. That's an unbelievable amount of public money propping up the old system. But hold on, because that's not even the whole story. The IMF did a bigger calculation. When you start adding in the hidden costs, the stuff we all pay for, like air pollution, health problems, and climate damage, that subsidy number blooms to $7 trillion. That's about 7% of the entire global economy. It's just mind-boggling. All right, what about the jobs? This is actually a really interesting story. Globally, the clean energy sector now employs more people than the fossil fuel sector, which is great news. But those raw numbers don't tell the full story. And here's the catch. Clean energy jobs, they tend to be spread out all over the place. But fossil fuel jobs, they're often the entire economic backbone of a town, a county, or even a whole region. So you can't just shut down a coal mine and tell everyone to go install solar panels. That concentration gives the industry incredible political influence in those specific places. This quote really just cuts to the heart of the political problem. For so many developing countries, energy isn't some abstract issue. It's about being able to power factories, keep medicines cold, and let kids do their homework at night. So unless clean energy can deliver on that same promise of a better life, affordably and reliably, they just aren't going to and maybe can't make that switch. So we've got the physics, we've got the infrastructure, we've got the money and the politics. But the final piece of this lock-in puzzle? Well, it's actually inside all of our heads. As human beings, we are just hardwired to not like change, especially when it feels risky. We feel the pain of a potential loss, like, say, a higher price at the gas pump today, way more intensely than we value a distant potential gain, like a more stable climate in 30 years. The whole idea of an energy transition runs right into this fundamental human bias. And it doesn't stop there, right? For a lot of us, climate change feels like a problem for some other time or some other place. It gets all tangled up in our political teams, so we end up defending our side instead of just looking at the facts. We blame other countries. Or we fall for what's called moral licensing. Doing one small big thing, like recycling, which makes us feel like we've done our part so we can ignore our much bigger impacts. Okay, so that is the trap. It's deep, it's complicated, and it's powerful. So, if we're being realistic, how in the world do we even start to get out of it? Well, first, we have to actually see the problem clearly. And this is basically the formula. You take the physical reality of the infrastructure, you add the money and political power that protect it, and then you multiply all of that by our own human psychology that resists change. The result? A system that is just incredibly hard to move. Technology alone won't fix this. Making people feel guilty won't fix this. You have to tackle the whole equation. So what would that actually look like? Well, for starters, you stop spending over $1 trillion a year to make the old system cheaper, and you use that money to help people afford the new one. You start treating power grids and battery storage with the same national importance as oil pipelines. You make real, concrete plans for workers in fossil fuel regions, not just empty promises. And maybe most importantly, you sell the change based on its immediate, tangible benefits, like cleaner air and stable energy costs. And that's really the bottom line here. We are going to keep using fossil fuels for as long as they are the easiest, cheapest, and most reliable option for billions of people to improve their lives. The goal isn't to make people feel bad about that. The real goal is to build and innovate until the clean choice is simply the better choice, the obvious choice. And that, right there, is the real question we should be asking. Not just how do we fight the old way, but how do we make the new way so good, so affordable, and so reliable that the transition just becomes inevitable?